Emma couldn't believe her eyes. Standing before her was her father, her biological father, someone she had never seen in person, except in photographs. Of course, it had been 18 years since her birth, and Martin, as he was named, had left her mother with a newborn baby in her arms, but his name, surname, and appearance had changed very little over all these years. "Look at me as if you've seen a ghost," Martin joked, and the audience laughed. Emma was taken aback, then became deeply anxious. The other students in the auditorium also felt the awkwardness. "Sorry for being late," she mumbled and went to find her seat. It was her first lecture, and she had somehow managed to be late. What's worse, she had to face her father. Martin, who had never held his daughter in his arms or communicated with her since her birth, had no idea that Emma was his daughter. "What's wrong?" her friend and fellow student Jennifer asked quietly. "You really look like you've seen a ghost. What happened?" "Bus I was on to get to the university broke down. Had to wait for another one," Emma replied in a hushed voice. "I'm not talking about that. I mean your reaction to this professor. What's going on?" Jennifer inquired softly. "Nothing. We'll talk later," Emma said and fell silent, just as Martin's booming voice filled the auditorium. "Enough chit-chat. Not only have you arrived late for the lecture, but now you dare to disrupt the order. Do you want me to send you back to where you came from with your audacious tardiness?" Emma felt her face turn red again. Jennifer nudged her in the side, and Emma only managed to apologize. "I'm sorry," before taking her seat. Emma couldn't take her eyes off him. He was tall, athletic, and handsome, a real charmer, but she also despised him for leaving her mother with a baby. On one hand, he was an excellent lecturer. On the other, he was despicable. It all boiled down to the fact that Emma both loathed and admired him simultaneously. How had she missed the fact that this remarkable professor shared a striking and unforgettable name and surname with her? But in recent months, Emma's main concern had been her mother's health. Her mother, Olivia, had fallen ill, and hypertension had become a constant companion. Olivia's blood pressure would often spike, and she had even been hospitalized a few times for treatment. The treating physician strongly recommended medication, but Olivia vehemently refused, and Emma worried about her mother's health. "Mom, you're at risk of a heart attack or stroke. Why won't you take the pills and care about your blood pressure?" Emma tried to persuade her. "Because this is my life, my health, and my decision," Olivia replied categorically. The attending physician explained to Emma that her mother's hypertension might be related to menopause, a change in hormonal balance. But Emma still worried. Could the hypertension go away on its own? She asked hopefully. "High blood pressure is a dangerous thing. Stress, hormones, city life, all of this can raise blood pressure," the doctor explained. "And your mother is very sensitive and emotional. I wouldn't hesitate to take the pills in her place, but it's her decision." "I'm afraid she'll have a heart attack or stroke," Emma confided in the doctor. "I don't have anyone else besides my mom." "I understand your concern, but there's nothing more I can do," the doctor replied. Several bouts of hypertension had come and gone during the summer and early autumn, but Olivia's stubbornness about starting medication persisted. She would faint now and then, experience vomiting, and nosebleeds, but nothing could persuade the determined mother to take the pills. All of these health problems with her mother distracted Emma from her studies. Medications, doctor visits, researching information about hypertension, heart attacks, and strokes, it all swirled in Emma's mind, making it hard for her to concentrate on her studies. And then, as if out of nowhere, Martin appeared. Emma watched him and couldn't believe the coincidence. He wasn't teaching at another university. He was in her class, in her auditorium, today, starting his lectures. It was as if fate was pushing her father toward her, and all that remained was for them to come to terms with this fact. "What happened in class after the lecture?" Jennifer asked Emma, but she hesitated about whether to tell her friend the truth about this professor. "Nothing. My mom wasn't feeling well again this morning," Emma replied, deliberately concealing the truth. "Emma, why didn't you confess?" Jennifer asked. "No, I don't want to," Emma replied. "Okay, he's probably already forgotten about you. You looked so strange, as if you had seen him somewhere before, and then bumped into him. It's just your imagination," Jennifer comforted her. "It's just my imagination," Emma replied. She didn't want to tell her friend that Martin was her father. Martin addressed Emma again as she was heading for the exit. She was sure he wouldn't let her late arrival at his lecture go without comment. "Don't you think our introduction didn't go very smoothly?" he said. Emma froze, while other students passed by with various expressions on their faces, smiles, indifference, and raised eyebrows. "I already apologized. How many more times do I need to apologize to make amends?" Emma quickly retorted. "Oh, come on. Don't take my words so seriously." Martin smiled, and Emma was surprised by his unexpected leniency. "I just need a class representative. By the time you arrive for class, I hadn't found any volunteers. There might be some among your classmates. Considering your tardiness, I can count on your help," the man continued. Emma initially wanted to decline, but then changed her mind. "What do I need to do, Martin? What are the class representative's responsibilities?" she asked. He smiled almost imperceptibly, and Emma thought that he seemed to understand her mother well, the woman who had fallen in love with him 19 years ago. "You'll need to monitor academic progress, check the grades I assign during seminars, keep track of grade books, and of course, help me with coursework and schedule meetings with students working on their course and diploma papers," Martin confidently stated. "I agree," Emma replied, delighted at the chance to get closer to her father and learn more about him. With a smile on her face, Emma returned home. Her declaration puzzled her mother for a long time. "What an honor! Which professor rated you so highly?" she asked. "We had a new professor today, and I met him for the first time," Emma explained. It definitely wasn't the right time to mention that Emma had met her biological father. Secluding herself in her room that evening, she retrieved photos from an old box that Olivia had given her. In these photos, the woman, who was still young and beautiful, stood in an embrace with Martin. There was no doubt, such coincidences couldn't happen by chance, and today marked the official day of her meeting with her father. Martin turned out to be not as much of a snob as Emma had initially thought. He didn't nitpick about her work, praised her assistance, and gave her small gifts on various humorous occasions. Emma enjoyed interacting with this intelligent man and was happy that he was her biological father. "You know, I have a daughter. She's 3 years younger than you. I'd like her to study law too," Martin suddenly said. Emma's heart raced because Martin was talking about his family. It meant he had a wife and children, and Emma had a sister and possibly more siblings. "Does she want to become a lawyer herself?" Emma asked, to which Martin replied, "Right now, all she wants to do is dance and prance in front of the mirror. But I hope that by the end of school, she'll start thinking about something more serious." Emma was taken aback and said, "I used to dance too." She quickly contained herself. Why share these trivial details about her life with him? She was just a simple student helping him with organizational matters. 2 months passed, and Emma realized it was time to clarify the situation. She caught herself thinking several times that she should tell Martin the truth about being his biological daughter. But at the last moment, when she was ready to open her mouth and reveal the truth to him, Emma suddenly changed her mind. Everything changed on one of the days when Martin scolded a student for having, as it turned out, publicly abandoned his pregnant girlfriend in front of their fellow students. The girl was in hysterics, and Martin tried to calm her down while simultaneously reprimanding the guy for his despicable actions. Martin later told Emma how the guy had used profanity to insult the girl who was expecting his child, and how Martin personally reprimanded him, causing the guy to blush with embarrassment. At this point, Emma couldn't bear it any longer. "So, you're saying you couldn't just abandon a pregnant girlfriend, no matter the circumstances?" she asked. Martin's eyes widened as he contemplated the statement. "Certainly not. I believe that every person should take responsibility for their actions. If you don't want a child, that's your business, but the commitment to the person with whom you have a child is yours. You should honor that commitment and not forget about it," Martin replied. Emma suddenly became furious, and it was quite evident. "But didn't you forget about your own commitments a long time ago?" she cautiously remarked, addressing her teacher. "What are you talking about, Emma?" Martin asked, baffled, his gaze fixed on the student. "Do you remember Olivia? Does that name ring a bell for you?" Emma inquired. Martin furrowed his brow, evidently recalling everything associated with the name mentioned by Emma and how a student could be connected to his obligations towards someone. Emma couldn't contain herself and pulled out her phone from her pocket, where she kept photos of her mother. She extended it to her teacher, who examined the phone for a moment before returning it to Emma. I remember Olivia. I'm sorry, but I don't see any connection between you and that woman. Emma, you strike me as well-mannered, decent, and a very respectable young lady, Martin unexpectedly stated. Emma was hurt and pursed her lips. Why do you talk as if my mother is ill-mannered and unworthy? She asked with displeasure. Because that's the truth. Did she tell you that I had anything to do with her child? Didn't she? Martin said. Emma provocatively stared at her teacher, but he shook his head. No, absolutely not. Yes, I was friends with Olivia, and we were close, but I had no involvement in her pregnancy. We weren't that close for me to be the father of her children, Martin affirmed. Emma was taken aback. My mother told me so much about you, about Martin, and your relationship, about how you left her with a child in your arms because you chose another woman, about how they met, and how tender and affectionate their relationship was. What you're saying raises doubts in my mind, she said with sadness. Martin smiled. Olivia was such a fictitious person, and she loved to make things up. She lied to all the guys she dated. Back then, your mom was a lover of male attention, and I think she chose me, her friend, among all her suitors, who weren't particularly worthy. So you'd think your father was a decent man. Actually, Emma, I can't be your father. Emma tucked her phone into her pocket, picked up her bag and headed for the exit of the auditorium. There were tears in her eyes and her disappointment was immense. She had wanted her real father to be Martin so badly. Olivia set the table, placed a plate of hot dinner in front of her daughter and sat down across from her herself. Hey, how's school going? The mother asked. Mom, all of a sudden, I met Martin. Remember him? He teaches law here, Emma told her mother. Emma said this and looked at her mother. Olivia turned pale, and the girl was afraid that her mother's blood pressure might rise again. But Olivia pulled herself together quickly enough and looked at her daughter. And what did he say to you? Olivia asked. Showed me pictures, told me he was my father, Emma replied. Olivia suddenly sobbed, then started crying altogether. Emma handed her mother a tissue, poured a glass of water. When the woman calmed down, Emma was already putting her arm around her mother's shoulders and rocking her quietly like a child. I don't blame you for anything. It's just, I was so happy to meet my father. He's so good, smart, handsome, kind. I've always dreamed of having a father like that. I'm sorry, Emma said. Olivia sobbed again. I didn't know how to confess to you. I don't know who your father is. I had a few boyfriends. I was easygoing, available, trusting, and then I found out I was pregnant. The funny thing was that I didn't have a single picture of myself with any of my young men. We just didn't take pictures, and Martin was a true friend, wise and very supportive. Then I decided that my daughter shouldn't think her mother was a silly fool who led such a lifestyle. I made up a father for you, and I didn't think of you two meeting like this. Martin's gone. I thought it was forever. I was sure of the insurance against you meeting, but no, I miscalculated. Emma hugged her mother even tighter. So be it, Mom. Emma would still think of Martin as her father. The girl had gotten too used to that thought in 18 years. Of course, her mother. She forgave and wasn't angry with her. All these were just mistakes of youth, and who knows what other mistakes Emma herself will have to make.